All right, let's get into Donald Trump's appointments so far. This is part of the fun is seeing who Donald Trump puts where in his cabinet, in his administration. We got a long way to go. There's a lot of spots to fill, but he is filling them up. I'm going to give you what we got so far. Again, this all changes as we go here. Chief of Staff made history with his Chief of Staff pick. Susie Wiles becomes the first female Chief of Staff in United States history. Now, again, the mainstream media told you Donald Trump is a misogynist. He never surrounds himself by strong women, right? Mark Cuban told you that he never surrounds himself by strong, intelligent women. What's his first move that he makes as president-elect? He makes the first ever woman Chief of Staff. So props to Susie Wiles. This is a brilliant woman who has been doing this for 30 years. She goes way back. She was very responsible for getting Ron DeSantis elected as governor in Florida before Ron DeSantis, committed political suicide by trying to run against President Donald Trump. I think looking back at that move looks even worse than it did when he actually did it, when I thought it was bad. But Susie Wiles was very responsible for getting Ron DeSantis into that governorship. She knows what she's doing. She's been with Trump for a long time. She is a loyalist, and she will be the Chief of Staff. UN ambassador is going to be Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. What an improvement this is from a Nikki Haley. Now, one of the key things that Donald Trump did say, as much as he says who's going to be in the cabinet, one of his big announcements that he made was who is not going to be anywhere near his cabinet. He put this one up where he said neither Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, or former UN ambassador Nikki Haley will have a position or a role in the Trump administration. And man, is this a breath of fresh air for everybody to hear. Everybody was kind of, I'll be honest, the last rally that I was at in Pennsylvania, for some reason, I don't know why, Donald Trump, before he came out, the guy that interviewed Dave McCormick, who ended up winning his Senate seat, was Mike Pompeo. And out of all these rallies that I've been to and these different Trump events, it was the first time I seen Mike Pompeo. And I'm thinking, like, why the hell is Mike Pompeo here speaking a day before the election? I'm like, that was kind of scary. So then it makes you think that maybe he's weaseling his way back in there for a position. But thank God Trump came out with the statement, Mike Pompeo will not be there, and Nikki Haley will not be in the administration. So thank God for that. UN ambassador goes to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Environmental Protection Agency, the head of that is going to be Lee Zeldin, a former congressman. This one here, the border czar, is going to be Tom Homan. Man, this pick was so good. Tom Homan is going to be the border czar in charge of this mass deportation effort. He is the right man for the job. You could not find a better pick. Here's why. Take a look at this.
Run it again. And we know what happens to these children, Sean. And look, the illegal aliens coming across the border, people need to understand, 31% of women that make that journey get raped by criminal cartels. Children get raped. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 that have been raped multiple times. These cartels are animals, and that's why President Trump's going to take them off the face of the earth. They have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world. And President Trump is committed to calling them terrorist organization and using the full might of the United States Special Operations to take them out.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
That is exactly how you want your border czar to sound. You don't want the border czar to sound like Kamala Harris. We've been to the border. We've been to the border. Well, but you haven't been to the border. Well, I've never been to Europe either. We are so sick and tired of the fraud and the phoniness that went on with the Biden administration, where you even had Joe Biden prior to even when he was the president-elect. Surge the border, right? Surge the border, he told everybody. Tom Homan is the right man for the job, and you got to love his answer. Like, how do you prevent separation of families, when you're sending them back? Well, you send the whole family. That's how you stop that. Brilliant. And Tom Homan is going to be there. And so if you're in this country illegally, pack your shit and get ready, because you are going back. You are going back where you came from. And that's the name of that tune. And a lot of people already started. Again, one of these things, Donald Trump's still 70-something days away from taking the helm, or 70 days away. And you already have illegals fleeing New York City. A lot of illegals trying to make it to Canada. The convoy's starting to go in the other direction now, because they know what time it is. It's Trump time, and it's America first time. And so the illegals already, Eric Eric Adams is starting to work with Donald Trump on cutting out the funding that these guys were getting. And so it's already beginning. Not to mention, it's beginning elsewhere around the world already, too. Hamas wants to stop their war. Vladimir Putin wants to come to the table and figure out how to stop this whole thing with Zelensky. Those two guys, he'll have that war solved. China wants to play nice all of a sudden. Everybody's tone kind of changed a little bit since election night. All right, so again, Boder Czar Tom Homan, great pick. Deputy Director of Staff is going to be Stephen Miller, longtime Trump ally, former, I believe he was the speechwriter. Interesting side note here, Stephen Miller, somebody that I drove in an Uber years ago, like 6 years ago. I was down Long Branch, New Jersey. I think he was at Jared Kushner's house. Somewhere down there, he owns property. And I was driving Uber, got a call to take him from there up to Bedminster. And I was like, oh, man. And now at the time, I wasn't doing a podcast at all. I just knew he looked familiar. And I was like, oh, so anyway, it ended up being Stephen Miller. But Stephen Miller, been a longtime Trump ally. He's a no-brainer here. The spot he gets is Deputy Director of Staff. National Security Advisor is going to be Congressman Mike Waltz. I just spoke with Mike Waltz the day prior to the election, or 2 days prior to the election, at the J.D. Vance rally in Aston. And here's a clip of what Mike Waltz had to say.
And look, you're right. She's a lightweight. She's a lightweight not just as a candidate. She's a lightweight in terms of governing. And never in a million years could Kamala Harris handle Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, tax reform, right? Veterans reform and the VA Mission Act, the border. The same Mexican government that Biden and Harris have been dealing with put their own National Guard on their southern border under Donald Trump. All of these things he'll get done just like he did 4 years ago.
Yeah, awesome to see Mike Waltz there in Pennsylvania. But Mike Waltz gets the nod as National Security Advisor. And how cool is it for him? He is the first ever Green Beret in Congress. He gets to become the appointment for National Security Advisor on Veterans Day. So cool for him. I know people have a knock on Mike Waltz, say, oh, he's a war hawk or a warmonger. I don't see him that way. I do think you need to have some strong people in these positions also. Let's not forget, we got enemies in the world that really want to do us harm. So you can't have weak individuals. Now, we don't want a war hawk to me is somebody like Nikki Haley, right? Okay, not somebody like Mike Waltz. So I don't necessarily buy the rhetoric on him. He's a combat veteran. I think he knows the cost of war. I don't see him talking Trump into getting us into a foreign war. The last thing Trump is going to want on his legacy, no matter who is around him, is to get the U.S. involved in a war. It would crush his legacy. So I don't think you have to worry about seeing that. All right, also we have now Secretary of Homeland Security, Governor Kristi Noem gets the nod for this one. So Governor Kristi Noem is somebody that a lot of people were suggesting to be the vice president pick of Donald Trump back before her book came out. Once her book came out, we all know what happened. The story about her shooting the dog really just kind of spiraled her. She was going uphill. She was gaining a lot of traction in the political world, getting mentioned as a possible VP pick. And then all of a sudden, the dog story came out. It went down. She tried to come out to explain it. It got worse. There was a thing in the book there that said she met with Kim Jong-un, and that ended up being not true. So that kind of hurt the stock for Kristi Noem there for a little bit. But now she comes back, and that's a comeback for her to get the job as Department of Homeland Security. And right now, I have not seen this to be official. I guess this is for Secretary of State. It appears to be Senator Marco Rubio. Now, Senator Marco Rubio is a guy that I like. I've interviewed him on First Class Fatherhood. I think he's a great dad. He's got a great story. He's been a little bit of a weakness in the Senate. I'm not going to lie here. His Liberty score is a C. He has a 71% of the time he votes in the conservative direction. The other time he votes in the liberal direction. So one of the best things about this, about having a Marco Rubio in as Secretary of State, is it frees up his Senate position that will have to be appointed by Ron DeSantis. So I would expect Ron DeSantis to put a real conservative there. That could possibly be someone like Byron Donalds, who is an A-plus Liberty score, right? 100% down the line. So that could be a win in the Senate if we fill that seat correctly, and Ron DeSantis will be in charge of that. And it gets Marco Rubio out of the Senate, puts him in as Secretary of State, and if he doesn't do the right thing or Trump doesn't like what he sees, Trump gets rid of him, and then that's the end of that. So I'm okay with the Marco Rubio pick? Are there now? Listen, all the Monday morning quarterbacks are coming out. You'll see them all online. I don't like this pick. I don't like that pick. There's going to be a lot of that going on right now. We got to accept what we're getting here. We got to trust the process, and we got to see how this unfolds. My faith is in Donald Trump to do the right thing here. Again, we're all kind of how we were worried about the election getting stolen because of what we saw in 2020. We're all kind of worried about who Donald Trump surrounds himself with because we saw how disastrous that went in 2016 when he came in and you had all these people. Now, look at how many people in his administration came out against him as he's running for president, right? A lot of these turncoats that kissed ass, sucked up to President Trump, got around him, and then were in there just to sabotage his presidency. So, yes, this is why we are a little bit gun-shy of who Donald Trump is picking to put around him. So we got to, there's a little bit of caution with everybody. So let's see. I'm hearing that the top guy for the director of the CIA is Kash Patel. That would be the home run so far of this entire thing. So I'm praying for Kash to get tapped for that job. So as the day goes on, we're going to see more and more of these picks coming out for President Donald Trump as he selects his cabinet, the people that surround him. And again, the sentencing that was supposed to happen here is no longer. They postponed that sentencing, which we kind of expected to happen. How are you going to actually sentence Donald Trump now? The whole thing is so stupid. The people have spoken. They want Donald Trump to represent them. And so now if you're going to actually go out there and try to put him in jail, there will be an uproar here. So the sentencing has been postponed. I don't think you will ever see it. All these other cases have been dropped. Jack Smith, who was unconstitutionally appointed anyway, there's no sense in pursuing any of these cases. The cases were meant to stop Donald Trump from running. That was the whole point of the case, and that's gone now. And the reason why they wanted to put him away and stop him from running was because exactly what they saw, on November 5th. They wanted to prevent that from happening at all costs. So they tried to lock him up. They tried to sentence him. They tried to find a way to keep him off the ballot. They tried to put him off the ballot in certain states. If you remember, the Supreme Court had to step in and put his name on the ballot. They tried everything. Of course, they tried to kill the guy. So everything and anything was on the table to prevent him from being there on November 5th. And it's exactly why. They knew their internal polling or internal sourcing or whatever, they knew, the inside people knew the reality that we all live in. The reality was that Donald Trump was going to win this thing. But the media had you thinking like this is the tightest race. Oh, my God, this is going to be a knuckle biter. This is going to be a nail biter here. This is going to come right down to the wire. The people on the inside knew this is a blowout if Donald Trump gets in there. So they tried everything to stop him. And was it a blowout? Donald Trump got more votes. And they're still counting them. But Donald Trump got more votes this year than he did in 2020. So the top three popular votes in history for the Republican Party are Donald Trump in 24, Donald Trump in 2020, Donald Trump in 2016. Donald Trump, this is the MAGA party. This is what we need. We need MAGA movement in the House, MAGA movement in the Senate. That's what we need going forward. It's MAGA or a bust here. And this movement will continue long past Donald Trump. It ain't going to go away. This is why I think, too, as I said last week, as the rumors are circulating for who is going to run in 2028 for the Republicans, I honestly think the ticket is going to be Vance Trump. Whether it's Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Laura Trump, they're going to keep that Trump name on the ticket, and I think they should. So we'll see how that goes. So those are the picks so far. What do you think about his picks so far for the administration? Get them in the comments section down below. Get your voice heard.